Aloha. Welcome to the 41st Annual Hawaii International Film Festival presented by Halekulani and our discussion with Lisa Tauma, Miki Magavisa, and Matasila Freshwater, the team behind TEINE SＡ, The Ancient Ones. We would like to extend our thanks to Pacific Islanders in Communications and Niotero for sponsoring this program as part of the Pacific Showcase. My name is Anderson Lay, and I'm the Artistic Director for the festival. First of all, I'd like to give a quick land acknowledgement, acknowledging Hawaii as an indigenous space whose original people are today identified as Kanaka Maoli, or Native Hawaiians. Some quick housekeeping bits. For programming updates, for up-to-date information on additions to our program, and the full schedule of films, events, HIF Talk story sessions, and Q&As, visit our website at hiff.org, hiff.org. For Audience Award voting, to participate in our Hawaii News Now Audience Award, please cast your vote via ballot in the theaters or online at watch.hiff.org or on our apps by voting with the 5 stars on the film's page. Vote for your favorite narrative, documentary, and short film. Mahalo to Hawaii News Now for their support. So, without further ado, let's welcome the team behind TEINE SΑ. Hello.
Hello.
And I'd like to introduce Lisa Tauma, who is the producer of this series anthology, and also we have 2 directors from the anthology. We have Miki Magavisa, whose film is Sine and Tuna, right? And also Matasila Freshwater, whose film is Hiyama. Welcome. Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think maybe my first question will go to Lisa. I think you're kind of really the main producer, the organizer behind this series. What was your inspiration, and how did they all come together?
Yes, so I've always wanted to make a series about our ancient Pasifika atua. I think, you know, it's something that's never been explored. We've seen these worlds explored a lot in other international series. I'm thinking of things like American Gods and you know, all those big series. And I always thought, watching those films, that our Moana histories are so rich with stories of our own atua, you know, and our own deities. And I always wanted to bring those to screen. And so that was the why that, you know, I wanted to create this series and bring on all these wonderful creatives to help realize that vision. And so I could see an audience thirst for that kind of those kind of worlds and those parts of Pacific, her stories. And I'm so grateful that we had people like Matasila and like Miki on board to help realize that.
So, how did you decide when coming up with this, with the project and whatnot? How did you decide which creatives to work with?
I was really interested in the different creatives we brought on board. I was really interested in what they'd done before and the kind of visions in their work. And I had wanted to offer the opportunity really to develop in this space, in this particular genre, because the genre is really important, and that people would be interested in, you know, extending out of what's previously been seen on screen for Pacific people storytelling into a new sort of space. And so, yeah, I mean, you had sort of reached out to people that I thought could do it really with originality and integrity, but also had the ability to deliver. And I really like, in terms of the genre, what you talk about, Matasila, in that space, in terms of realizing Pacific woman, and particularly you talk about Black bodies in the genre, because it's all stuff that had never been seen before. It's all first time kind of imaginings, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Matasila, do you want to add to that regarding?
Yeah, I guess just that I was really excited about working with Lisa and the team because, yeah, I think brown bodies and Black bodies and Pasifika bodies in horror don't exist, and if we do, we're considered monstrous and demonized, and so it was a really exciting opportunity to embrace the sort of film language that isn't ours necessarily. We haven't had 100 years to decide who we are on screen, and so it means that we can be, I think, a little bit more playful and a little bit more subversive, and so I was really excited about that prospect.
Yeah, I mean, horror, I mean, is in the sense of, as a genre, is universally beloved by all over the world. You know, it crosses borders and whatnot. Like, but you know, with the very rich history of horror, you know, from like George Romero or to Jordan Peele now, right? So like, but you know, it's tend historically to been very white male centric, obviously. You know, and then you see the work of like Nia DaCosta and Jordan Peele, whatnot. So like,
Yes.
what were your, I mean, for the directors, what were your inspirations? Did you grow up loving horror? I mean, what are your like touchstones when it comes to the genre? I mean, Mickey, maybe you can jump, start it off.
Yeah, I can jump in here. I hate horror. It's way too scary.
Okay.
I can't watch it. But okay. But I have always appreciated the genre, you know, and I've always wanted to do a piece in the genre. And I think one of the things that was exciting about this particular project was that, you know, Lisa had said from the outset that it's quite nice to interpret this genre in a way that feels more Pacific. You know, I think Matasila talks about that a lot, is that we have been demonized in that area, but a lot of our Pacific stories told through our parents and our grandparents, they were scary stories. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, they sort of had that about them. So it was interesting to try and retell these stories and try and make people feel like I felt when my parents were telling those stories, but do it in perhaps a new Pacific way. You know, you mentioned Jordan Peele. He's kind of carving his own way of doing it. And you know, there was a whole strong kind of influx of the Asian horror genre, which is super interesting to me as well. So I was just excited by trying to carve out a new path for it and just bringing our stories into that sort of arena, I guess.
So you appreciate the genre. You're as observable. You're a scaredy cat when it comes to actually watching horror movies.
Not that scaredy cat. I can watch it in the daytime.
Okay, all right, all good.
Just add to what Mickey said. I think it's really important to frame the conversation as well around what Mickey's saying about the Western concept of a horror, you know, and that genre, and what we were trying to create with this series. I mean, it's been tagged horror because that's sort of the pre-existing kind of familiar genre, but we were really trying to create a Moana kind of lens around really what in Samoan terminology is whangoho, you know. So it's the old stories and the ancient stories, which happen to, you know, to be scary, and so yeah, I think whilst it sits within this sort of genre, there's a whole thing about the way that's interpreted, you know, by specific people, and it's not the classic idea of horror. It's kind of it's looking at our spirituality and you know, and those worlds, you know, rather than the classic boo scary monster.
Right, because essentially all these stories are based on deities, right, from your everyone's culture. So Matasila, I mean, is it true for your film Hiyama, which is really scary? I mean, we want to talk about the casting of, you know, the lead and whatnot, but first of all, like, is it true that it was inspired by your family history or lineage, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so sorry for cutting off. Yes, so we have Hiyama, who are our spiritual leaders, our sort of the people who sit on the peripheries of society, but also of spirituality and space, and
they're like shamans. Like shaman?
Yeah, very shamanistic. Okay. And yeah, so I have a bunch of different Hiyama in my lineage and my ancestry. But there was one that I was always drawn to. Her name was Lupatina. And my mum had met her when she was a young girl, and my mum would always tell me stories about her being very powerful, but mum didn't understand that when she was little, and she would just go visit her and have these like really beautiful, tender moments with this person. And I loved that, because I loved that there was this reverence to her that mum only understood as an older woman and understanding the context around it. And so I think I wanted to just bring in those elements into a contemporary setting and how that relationship could exist and how it could be empowering and maybe teach her on the edge of being a little bit creepy. Yeah.
I mean, you're setting it in an all-girls school. You know, I mean, that's already creepy in the sense of
in drama clubs, also scary.
Clubs, yeah, always scary, very dramatic, you know. But I mean, like, talk about, you know, deciding to have it on the setting, like a setting in the school, but also casting the main character. I mean, the actress who plays the main character is just incredible. You can talk about finding her and whatnot.
Yeah, so that's Elsie Pulosovai, who is an amazing performer. And I had seen her, she was a dancer for an opening premiere for Vai, another film I was a part of. And I had just seen her dance. And since then I was like, I'd love to work with you. And I don't know what that would be. And this opportunity came up and we brought her in for a reading. Lisa brought her in. And yeah, she just blew us away. She was, you know, instantly the right person. And so, yeah, I think really it was very easy to work with her because it's, for me, I think my directing is not necessarily like when you're on set, but it's all the stuff you do beforehand and that prep work and building that trust and establishing that relationship so that when you're in the moment, they go to places, those actors can go to places where you haven't even comprehended just because they feel safe enough to. I hope that's what it is. So yeah, so lovely to work with her, and yeah, she's amazing.
So for Elsie, was this? I mean, obviously, I'm talking about the fact that, you know, you don't see a lot of Pasifika stories in this genre, but I mean, for Elsie, I don't know. I've seen her in Vai and whatnot, but I assume that she isn't. I mean, it's kind of like the finding that cadence, the right notes for her performance. Regarding that, like, can you talk about kind of like how did you work with her when it comes to kind of, you know, getting that amazing acting performance from her?
Yeah. Well, firstly, she wasn't in Vai. She was just a dancer for.
Sorry. Excuse me. Yes.
This is the first thing we worked together on. And yeah, I think a lot of it was about conversations, about intentions, because I think there's a lot of things in there that conversation about menstruation, about the depiction of that, you know, all of these things that can be really sacred tapu for women. And yeah, and so I think that was a lot of the time going through the character's arc, going through her journey together, and then yeah, like I shared images of my family. Yeah, it just felt like a really holistic process as opposed to, oh, we're just going to do rehearsals. It was really about like talking about that emotional journey, connecting and trusting each other. And then from there, I think Elsie really brought her own, you know, being into it, and she can take that and run. And I'm just there to kind of guide the energy really at that point.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But for Mickey, your film Cine and Tuna, I mean, you basically set it in kind of like the, you know, kind of age of like Tinder and then and whatnot. So can you talk about kind of what your inspirations for your short, for your film?
Yeah, well, my short is actually written by Tusiata Avia. So she came up with the script and the idea for it. And yeah, she did set the story in the Tinder world, but I guess what was more scary to me was the connection back to the uncle character. So, you know, we were talking before about trying to find what it is to be scary, and to me the most scary thing about this story was to have that context, that historical context within my main character. And so I tried hard to try and build a backstory into Sina's character, which placed her into a very vulnerable position when we first see her, and try and have all that history come through what is very rarely is virtually no dialogue at all, and just comes through very subtle performance. That was all super interesting to me. Right. And then it was about trying to then give her a journey to go on to try and get herself out of that. and explore the things that she needed to go through in order to empower herself, whether that be through, you know, her connection to her gods and her deities, or whether that be the threat of protection for her family. She had to get to a place that she could pull herself out of that. And so those were sort of the interesting things that that I kind of first looked at. Absolutely, there is the Tinder aspect to it, which is also scary and which is also a dilemma that, you know, that we're facing. But you know, I think for me, going a step back from that was where I started, and then that was where I sort of based the foundation for the whole story.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And then can you talk about maybe kind of using kind of like, you're really great in using the location, I mean, like basically the claustrophobia of it all, and like, you know, dark corridors, and like, you know, just like this, you know, like, and whatnot, like you really made it very inventive in that sense. Like, what was the, how did you tackle this where, you know, it could have been just very conventional in the way, you know, like, you know, a ghost just like, you know, I mean, you brought up Asian horror, I kind of has like kind of remind of like The Ring or whatnot, but like about like kind of how did you put your spin on it?
Yeah, well, I like the stillness. The photography is kind of like a large. It's an area that I'm really interested in, and I'm interested in how those tell stories as well. So you hit the nail on the head there with the location. It was trying to find, you know, those spaces that offered up the photographic potential to reflect what our character was going through, whether that was to really shrink her into a large space, put her into confined spaces full of girls where she felt absolutely uncomfortable and wanted to get out of there. You know, there was something really, really lovely and interesting about long corridors for some reason. I shoot long corridors all the time for some reason. But that, you know, just those things I find interesting to just try and reflect what's in the genre and that and the horror of that. The script started off a lot bigger than it was, and so it was actually in a few more different locations. But one of the first things that we did as a team, and Lisa was involved in this as well, was just to try and simplify it down. So we got rid of all those locations. I like the idea of simplicity, you know, and placing it in a club room's environment like that, where a female character, and I've been in those club rooms before, they are super scary, you know, and for a female character to be stuck in those types of environments on her own, you know, just felt like it would photograph really well and be super scary. So you know,
succeeded. So Lisa, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say on the long corridor thing. I don't know if you guys know this, but with every film in the anthology, the reoccurring motif is a long corridor and a silhouette. A silhouette in a hallway in Matasila's Hiyama was a really powerful scene, and the distortion in the corridor. And Sina and Tuna, it's a very strong motif in TEINE SＡ, the first film, the silhouette in the long corridor. In Ahi, it's a long road that we see. And so in every piece, I don't know if anyone particularly noticed the motif, but yeah, it's when you see it all, there is that the ode to the long corridor.
It is cool though, you know. It does feel like it's a space where a character is in limbo, you know. They can go in so many different directions when they're in those spaces. So
that's a cool motif for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lisa, so I mean, this was, you know, I mean, we're showing it as an anthology, as a feature film, but it's actually a TV series, right? So I mean, I love it because it's like, you know, very much, I'm a big fan of like horror anthologies, like anywhere from the Twilight Zone to Creep Show to Tales from the Crypt, you know, and whatnot. And how's the reaction been regarding this quote unquote horror series 1 or season 1, and will there be a series 2?
Oh, the reaction's been fantastic. It's been off the charts. Because and I think it's that thing about when you put something in a space where there's been nothing before, you know, so that's one thing. But people are very taken The younger generation, you know, we've found with a lot of our content are really taken with the idea of ancient Pacific worlds. And I think that's a huge thing. You know, I think we're almost the last ethnic group to explore our ancient worlds, which are, you know, ethnic groups are terrible terminology, but those worlds are so rich in Polynesia. And so I think, you know, the references to the deities and that's been part of the huge traction of it. But also, I mean, what I love doing with a lot of the content we make for the Coconut is reversioning and flipping the switch on what is known and familiar, you know, film tropes or stereotypes, and Polynesianizing the genres around that, whether that be fairy tales, legends, you know, in this case, the horror genre. So I think that whole thing about inversions and subversions of known text is really strong, and maybe that's part of the popularity. But yeah, so it had a life here as a TV series. It's now on the theatrical circuit, where it's doing well, you know, as shorts, and also as I'm really glad that you guys are playing it as the anthology, because it's nice to see them all sit together in the way it was curated. So yay for HIF, and we're so excited about showing it to other Moana people. You know, that's the other part of this. It's and with a lot of content that we make, the prime question is, who is speaking here and who are you speaking to? And we're trying to create the new world of being able to speak to a Moana audience as the prime audience. And this is all part of that drive. You know, we're not part of the drive to make Pacific content for the mainstream, you know, the Palangi traditional audience. We're creating ourselves as and giving ourselves validity to be an audience, a commercial audience, you know, an audience with just as much weight behind us as other audiences have been. So we're so excited about showing it across the region, particularly.
Yeah. So, I mean, what is next for? Hopefully, there will be a series 2, or maybe, you know. But for Mickey, I know Mickey, you worked on another series as well. You know, the Panthers and whatnot, and Matasila, what are you working on next?
Oh, I'm just writing. You can't really see, but I've started my boards up here. It's in writing world for like the next year or something. But
right.
We love that.
Yeah. And Mickey, how about you? I mean, are you working on TV or working in features or what?
No, I am. We've currently got another short film anthology which is set to be released next year, which is a New Zealand Film Commission and Screen Australia project, which is very exciting as well. Which is a right of reply to Captain Cook's arrival in the Pacific. And so I think that's set to be released early next year. So we're just finishing that up. And as you say, you guys are playing up Panthers as well. So yeah, a couple of things on the go.
Great. Well, we wish you great success. Again, TEINE SÄ's The Ancient Ones is I had a great time, and I think it's great to see, just Pasifika, basically Pacific Islanders in this genre. And again, it's just like there's a rich tradition when it comes to the type of ghost stories that we, even from my cultural background of like from my parents talking about, freaking me out with these fairy tales or whatnot from my heritage, right? And like it's just so refreshing to see this on the big screen, so to speak, right? So it's and so I wish you great success. Hopefully there is a series 2. I definitely, and then whatever we can do, and then I think it's like a really exciting space, and I hope to see more directors like Mickey Matasila to also work in the genre space as well, because I'm a big fan.
Thank you for putting us on your poster.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Yeah. So thank you again for watching this discussion today, and a special mahalo to all of our HIF sponsors, board of directors, and our HIF Ohana members. If you're able, please consider donating to HIF. Every dollar counts towards keeping HIF presenting great content like this in the future. Learn more and donate at hif.org/donate. So again, thank you so much to the TEINE SÄ team. Thank you, Lisa, Miki, and Matasila, wish you very well, and we can't wait to show these to our audiences and to freak them out and scare them. Not so, and really appreciate these amazing stories. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anderson.
Take care.
Take care.